Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program, the military confirms the presence of Chinese vessels in the West Philippine Sea.
Our operating units have monitored the presence of fishing vessels from various countries, including Philippines, conducting fishing activities in sandbars in the vicinity of Pagasa Island.
This amid reports of harassment of Filipino fishermen by Chinese coast guards.
Our continuous monitoring and maritime awareness patrols, area patrols are continuing.
Also, social media giant Facebook cracks down on online accounts that spread fake information.
When our third-party fact checkers identify something as false, we have systems we put in place that will drastically reduce the distribution of that information.
And the online company's role in the upcoming elections.
We have all of our teams pulled together across the company, across the globe, to focus on critical elections like here in the Philippines.
Facebook head of cybersecurity, Nathaniel Gleicher, joins us in the program. Thank you for joining us. I'm Pinky Webb. Military officials confirm the presence of hundreds of Chinese vessels in the West Philippine Sea. The Western Command of the Armed Forces of the Philippines reports of at least 600 Chinese vessels during the first quarter of 2019. The AFP unit says it hasn't received reports of harassment on Filipino fishermen. Critics of the Duterte administration slammed the presence of Chinese vessels around Pagasa Island. Magdalo representative and senatorial candidate Gary Alejano says that China is slowly controlling the sandbars in Pagasa Island and the Duterte administration isn't doing anything. Alejano adds the government was warned 2 years ago, but the president dismissed his claims and called them fake. Senatorial candidate Erin Tanyada also urged the president to be more assertive in defending Pagasa Island. Tanyada also raises alarm on satellite images showing Chinese vessels in the area. He says that he is not encouraging the country to go to war, but urges government to follow the steps of Vietnam and Indonesia in addressing threats by China. Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have AFP Western Command Chief of Public Affairs, Captain Jason Ramon. Captain Ramon, thank you, sir, for taking our call.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, sir. Sir, just to be clear about this, in 2019, you were the one that said, sir, that there were about 600 Chinese vessels around Pagasa Island. Is that accurate, sir?
That was reported that there is 617 Chinese fishing vessels presented in our PowerPoint, which is supposed to indicate that this is the sum of Chinese fishing vessels for the first quarter of 2019.
So
if we monitor, it was monitored on a monthly basis. This will only sum up to 617. Actually, if we are basing it on the bone numbers, only 275 fishing vessels were monitored to be coming in and out of the vicinity of Pagasa Island.
So that is a total number, Captain. In the first quarter of 2019, there were a total of 617 vessels. That means in and out of that area. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, that's correct. That's only the total summation of all the vessels that were monitored for the whole quarter of 2019.
Captain, was there any indication on the number of 617, if there were, how many number were more or less permanently stationed there who had been there for quite a while?
If we make an average on a daily basis, we have only monitored around 10 Chinese fishing vessels on a daily basis.
Are we just talking about fishing vessels? Are we also looking into Coast Guard vessels and naval vessels coming from China, Captain?
Yes, ma'am. We are all, for the report, we monitor the Chinese fishing vessels now.
Can you repeat that, sir? I was asking if there were any monitoring of naval vessels and Coast Guard vessels from China, sir?
Yes, we have monitored the Chinese fishing vessels.
Is it true, some of the reports that are coming out, Captain, that some of the, let's first stick to the fishing vessels, that they are about 5 nautical miles from Pagasa Island? Is that true, sir?
We have monitored them to be within the vicinity of Pagasa Island.
How close?
And hello, ma'am.
How close, Captain? How close are they from Pagasa Island?
I will be still be looking at that data, ma'am. But we have monitored them to be within the vicinity of Pagasa Island.
Okay. Sir, normal ho ba yung number 1 na may fishing vessels na napakalapit sa Pag-asa Island? Is there anything wrong or is that okay, sir?
There's the vicinity is a common fishing ground for all. So for the past since based on the reports received, we have monitored fishing vessels from various countries, including the Philippines, conducting fishing activities in the sandbars in the vicinity of Pagasa Island.
Okay, because Pag-asa Island, just for the benefit of our viewers, is one of the 9 features occupied by the Philippines, located in the Spratly Island. So, I guess my question, sir, wala naman pong threat na napakalapit ng ilang Chinese vessels in Pag-asa Island, one of the features occupied by the Philippines, because you're saying it's almost common fishing ground, sir?
Yes, ma'am. So far, walang threat po, ma'am, since we're still monitoring them and yun nga po, this is a common fishing ground for countries like yun nga, sa Chinese and also we have other countries.
Sino pa po? Do we have any other known nationalities fishing around Pag-asa
Based on
Island?
our report, which you also presented, there are also monitored Vietnamese fishing vessels.
Okay. So yung sinasabi yung dami ng first quarter na 617 na Chinese vessels lang po ito around the area, is that a normal ho ba yung dami nung inyong na-monitor?
Yes, ma'am, normal lang siya kasi, ma'am, 617 nga po is the total for the first quarter.
Opo.
So if you do it in a daily basis, it would only be around 10 Chinese fishing vessels to be in the vicinity of Pagasa Island,
So
ma'am.
that's not unusual. Hindi, it's not a cause for concern. Hindi po dapat ito a cause for concern para sa Pilipinas.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. So it's not a cause for concern. Sir, is
Yes, ma'am. Since yun nga po, kung base natin siya on a daily basis, around 10 Chinese fishing vessels yung
Opo.
andun every day
Opo.
in
Captain,
a daily basis, ma'am.
yung pong malalaking barko, isang tabi muna natin yung tinatawag na fishing vessels, pero yung sinasabing Coast Guard at yung sinasabi pong naval vessels ng China, number 1, gaano ho ba sila kalayo sa Pag-asa Island? And number 2, would you consider that also normal?
Wala rin po tayong data regarding kung kano siya kalapit sa Pag-asa Island. However, yung presence talaga as we're exercising po yung freedom of navigation. So, kung dumadaan man yung ibang vessels doon, we still are monitoring them, ma'am.
Okay. Meron ho bang report ng harassment ng mga Filipino fishermen in that area, sir? Or even in other areas? Pero pag-usapan muna natin that vicinity of Pagasa, sir.
Ma'am, based on the reports received from our Joint Task Force West, following the period from 2018 to present, our operating units have monitored the presence of fishing vessels from various countries, including Philippines, conducting fishing activities in sandbars in the vicinity of Pagasa Island. Our personnel have also been engaging the fishermen there to know their concerns and if they are being harassed. So far up to this date, ma'am, we have not received any complaint or report from them that they are being harassed or driven away from that area, ma'am.
So malaya pong malaya po silang nangingisda dyan sa area na yan. Kahit na po nandyan yung mga Chinese fishing boats, it's as if wala pong gulo at walang threat na nangyayari sa area, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Westcom has been constantly encouraging yung local fishermen to continue their fishing ventures in the area.
Do you have also information, sir, on the, di ba ang ginagawa po sa Pagasa Island, yung tinatawag ng beaching at saka yung pag-upgrade ng runway? Any information on that, sir?
I don't have the data right now, ma'am. But,
Okay. Yes, go ahead, sir.
I believe yun, po, ma'am, may plan, andun po yung projects na yun, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Maraming salamat po sa inyo, AFP Western Command Chief of Public Affairs, Captain Jason Ramon. Armed Forces spokesman Edgar Arevalo also tells CNN Philippines of the implication of the presence of Chinese vessels around Pagasa.
The information that we got is that the more likely intention is to establish their presence in the area. But what's important, Priya, is that these information are being monitored and reported by Western Command to higher levels of our government for their information and basis or references of appropriate action, like with the Department of Foreign Affairs. We have our personnel in Pagasa Island, and as I said earlier, our continuous monitoring and maritime awareness patrols, area patrols are continuing, and the information like this we continue to collect and provide our decision makers with regard to the information that they need so that they could make this as basis for our references for other actions.
Arevalo adds the Chinese vessels are not supposed to be armed. This is the source on CNN Philippines. Telecom social media giant Facebook is intensifying its campaign against disinformation across its platform. What are their measures to prevent the proliferation of fake news ahead of the 2019 elections? Facebook head of cybersecurity Nathaniel Gleicher tells us more after the break. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Social media giant Facebook is intensifying its campaign against disinformation. The online company removed at least 200 pages, groups, and accounts that engaged in, quote, coordinated, inauthentic behavior that aimed to spread fake information to the country. What are the measures to track down more pages or online accounts that spread fake information? And how does Facebook ensure data security and privacy in a country that is dubbed to be the social media capital of the world? Let's go straight to the source of the story. We have Facebook head of cybersecurity policy, Nathaniel Gleicher. Nathaniel, good to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So you're the head of Facebook cybersecurity. There are more or less 2 billion active users in the world. In 2019, what would you say would be your biggest challenge or threat for 2019?
The thing that we have to stay focused on is that this is really a security challenge. We know that there are determined actors. Whenever you see public debate and you have more than 2 billion people engaging in it, you know people will try to target that public debate. And we know that those actors keep innovating, keep trying to develop new techniques, and any security protocols that we put in place, they're trying to figure out how to defeat them. So we have to be continually moving to stay ahead of the techniques that they're
So
trying.
it's really staying ahead of the game.
Absolutely.
Because it's almost like a competition between you and them.
Yeah, I think we're continually innovating to think, how can we put more barriers in their way? How can we slow them down? How can we make things harder and harder for these actors?
How can you be better than them?
Yeah, and when you think about it, so we have a scaled system that will automatically detect and remove fake accounts. So we detect and remove millions of fake accounts every day. And then on top of that, we have a manual team of skilled investigators that look for the most sophisticated actors that slip through our automated systems.
Really?
So you have this combination. You have scaled work, and then you have human investigation working together.
Two factors actually working together. And on that note, I think very recently you removed 200 pages of groups, and accounts that actually engaged in what you call coordinated, inauthentic behavior. Can you tell us more about what coordinated inauthentic behavior is?
It's a bit of a mouthful, is one thing.
It is.
Coordinated inauthentic behavior essentially means a network of pages, groups, and accounts that are all working together, that are designed to look independent, but are actually coordinated in the background, and they're misleading people about who's behind it. And in particular, they're using fake accounts to do that. Right, so that's what we're thinking, that's what we're looking for when we look for coordinated inauthentic behavior.
How easy or how difficult is that to actually spot this coordinated inauthentic behavior?
That's a great question. So this is why we have a team of investigators. These are people who've joined us from the intelligence community, from law enforcement, from investigative journalism. All careers where you really focus on trying to understand networks and try to sort of root out the truth. We have this team that works around the world and has partners. We now have 30,000 people across the company working on safety and security. So they have partners with expertise in every region, in every language or culture we deal with, so that we can find those types of clusters.
So obviously the biggest problem would be the proliferation of fake news, and how do you handle that?
So there are different pieces, right? In a case like this, what we're actually looking at is the behavior. It's not the content itself. It's the fact that the actors are using fake accounts to conceal their identity. One of the things we find when you look at information operations or this type of deceptive behavior is that the majority of the content doesn't violate policies, right? It may not be false or true, right? It's opinion. But the challenge is these are things that people are saying where if you knew who was behind it, you'd treat it differently.
Right. But what would be the criteria to take them down?
So the criteria is, are they engaged in misleading behavior, using fake accounts to trick people into thinking that the messages they're sending are independent, when in fact they're not? Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but it just seems that it's a little bit of work. No, it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Well, but this is why we have the manual investigations paired with the automated systems, because the truth is, when you're investigating these actors, it's always easier to break rules than to catch people for breaking them.
But when you talk about these coordinated inauthentic behavior, if you have about 2 billion active users worldwide, how many would be part of this list?
An incredibly tiny percentage. I think it's important to remember, I always think about it like this. If you imagine a pyramid, and that's all the people engaging on Facebook, the vast majority of that are authentic people speaking with their friends and their family. There's a tiny percentage at the top, right at the tip, that violates our policies. And then if you zoom in on that tip, the vast majority of that isn't coordinated inauthentic behavior.
Really?
It's spam, it's fraud, it's much simpler things. And it's the tiniest portion of the tiniest portion. Now, it's a small percentage, but the harm they can cause is really significant. So what we're doing is we're focusing on a small group that causes really problematic harm.
Is this the newest innovation among them, the coordinated inauthentic behavior?
So the different techniques we see people use for coordinated inauthentic behavior actually change. I've been focused on this problem at Facebook for about 1.5 years, and I'll tell you the techniques we're seeing today look very different than the techniques we saw even 6 months or a year ago.
They're old techniques. So they always have to renew their techniques as well in strategy.
They're moving very quickly.
Okay, but if you talk about, I know you're saying it's a pyramid, but if you talk about a percentage of the number, their number, what are we looking at?
So
0.1%?
It's a great question. I don't have a specific number, and one of the reasons we're careful about that is, let me give you an example. I'm going to give you 2 different takedowns we've done. In one takedown, actually here in the Philippines not that long ago, we removed this organization called Twin Mark Media that was running a network of coordinated inauthentic behavior. We announced that. And that they had about 45 million followers. It's a pretty large number, right?
That's a lot.
But it was commercially motivated narratives, right? Another case that we did in the United States, we saw about 20 pages that were creating events, and we're trying to incentivize people to come in the physical world to get into a fight with someone in the real world. So 45 million, 20. Well, which is worse? Because one, you have the physical world. So the numbers can be hard to measure here, and it's really important for us to think about what is the impact.
Okay, we'll be taking another short break. We'll be right back. What about safeguards for data information? What are you doing with regards to that?
So there's a range of different things we do. One of the things when we're talking to users about how they can keep themselves safe, which is absolutely one of the things we do a lot, we think about how do you engage with information on the platform and understand whether it's truthful or not, and how do you keep your own account safe. For keeping your account safe, it's really important that people do things like deploy 2-factor authentication and use a password manager. We actually have programs we've used around elections to provide increased protection for users or systems that we think might be targeted.
Okay, we're talking about the elections. Do you actually see an increasing trend in fake news coming out because of the election season in the Philippines?
So anytime there's a public debate, right, you're going to see people want to engage in that discussion. The key here is we have content, and then we have behavior. And the really core thing that we've found is there's a lot of focus on content. Is it truthful or not? Does it violate our policies or not?
It's almost fact-checking, yeah.
Right, and that's why we have our third-party fact-checking partners that help us in that space. But here, really the question is someone acting deceptively to conceal their identity? And it's really important for us that we focus on behavior. And the reason is, whenever you're talking about domestic debate, whenever we take an action, immediately people might expect, is there bias? Right? Are we favoring one side over the other? And so it's very important that we can say and we can prove with our policies, it's not about what they say, it's not about who they are, it's not about who they're advocating for. The question is, are they using deceptive techniques to conceal their identity?
When you talked about fact checkers, do you actually have fact checkers in every country?
We have fact checkers around the world. One of the challenges when we think, so we have 3 fact checkers here in the Philippines, for example. These are all independent organizations, and every fact checking organization is verified by Pointer, by their independent fact checking framework, to make sure that they have systems in place to control for bias, right? That they have the frameworks to really do that work. And so whenever we're looking for a partner, it's really critical that they have that expertise.
Who are they here in the Philippines?
So here we have 3, Veritas, Rappler, and AFP.
I see. Okay. So looking at the midterm elections this May 2019, what is Facebook doing right now to kind of sift disinformation, misinformation?
So whenever we think about elections, right, there's sort of 4 things we think about. The first is dealing with, as you said, misinformation. When our third-party fact checkers identify something as false, we have systems we put in place that will drastically reduce the distribution of that information. Second, we have the automated systems that detect and remove fake accounts to really clean up the environment. Third, we have all of our teams pulled together across the company, across the globe, to focus on critical elections, like here in the Philippines, in Indonesia coming up in a few months, in India, right around the world, so that we can bring all those teams together. And then we have this core team I talked about at the beginning, our investigators that are looking for the most sophisticated threat actors. We pull all of those pieces together to make sure that we're doing everything we can to protect elections. And on the other hand, we're actually working regionally and locally around how we can educate people about how to vote, how to get out information, how to find who their candidates are, and do the sort of digital literacy work that also helps people engage.
So far, are you seeing an increase in misinformation?
We're seeing an increase in people wanting, we're certainly seeing people engaging with the public debate, right? Like the elections are coming up, you're going to see back and forth about the candidates. The question of whether something is misinformation or not is something that our third-party fact checkers determine.
Lastly, issues of trolls and the troll armies, how do you address that?
So what we see is there's a high correlation between troll armies and the use of fake accounts. And so one of the tools is exactly some of the stuff that I talked about. But we have this combination of dealing with fake accounts, dealing with misinformation through working with our third-party fact checkers, and dealing with the sophisticated threats where they're changing their techniques so quickly. And that's why we have this human team, so that when the techniques change, we can keep up.
This must be an evolving strategy for
it is
everyone.
Absolutely,
Facebook, for sure.
It's very true.
Well, times have changed, and obviously we need to evolve with the times. And we wish you luck, of course, in Facebook to be able to do what is best.
Thank you. This is a really critical
information.
Yeah. This is a really critical priority for us. We see an important responsibility that we have to make sure that public debate on our platforms is open and authentic. And we do a lot of work, not just ourselves, but also working with the other platforms, working with civil society, working with government. And what we've seen is when you have all of those players together, you can really make things much more difficult for people that are trying to be deceptive.
Before I say goodbye, I just wanted to ask this last question. Which country would you say has the most trolls, misinformation, or even coordinated inauthentic behavior?
That's a really difficult question. And the reason it's difficult is the techniques that these actors have changed so regularly. A question you have to ask is, okay, what falls into this category? And so rather than trying to do numerical comparisons, I was mentioning this earlier, we really want to think about impact. We want to think about how we prioritize the works of our team. So one of the things we think about is there an upcoming election that we really need to make sure we engage with? Like, that's one of the ways we prioritize this.
All right, Nathaniel Gleicher, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.